It's Dennis here with another video, and I'm gonna attempt to explain in this video how to be to get what you want. And what I mean by try is ultimately to speak about how ultimate reality is cannot be spoken in words, but I have no choice but to use a limited process, these sounds coming out of my mouth to tell you how things are manifested. So here we go. In the ultimate sense, everything is manifested in the present moment. In the ultimate sense. So I think the best example, and I've said this before in another video, the best example that I can tell you of how this is the dream metaphor. If you've ever seen the movie Inception, they make a point in the movie that a dream never starts from the beginning. It always starts in the middle, because there's never a beginning. There was never anything before this moment now. And to the extent that there was, that you imagined that, you dreamt that up. And in the setting of the dream, whatever's around you, so yeah, I have some objects. Like here's a sunglass case, some cards, maybe some earbuds. And the only reason why you could say that you know those things is because you learned what they were in the past. In the past. But in the ultimate sense, there never was a moment in the past where you learned those things. No different than in the dream, there's a setting. And you get all these downloads, like this is that, this is my friend. And you instantly know what these things are in the dream. Then you wake up, like, oh, it was a dream. You made it all up. You made it all up. And even logic itself was all made up. Everything was made up. Completely made up. Dreamt up. By you. So this is what's happening in the absolute sense. So let's take it down a little bit, say relatively speaking. So in the relative sense, whatever you see around you, whatever being manifested in your 3D environment right now, is coming from, quote unquote, something in the past, quote unquote, in the past, there's no past, something in the past that you told yourself, that you thought of. And there's this time lag, a lag of time, and then this thing is being manifested later on. This is what's happening, relatively speaking. But really, in the absolute sense, it's happening right now. There was no past. So, to make this more practical, I'd like for you to understand a few other things. Looking at the word responsibility. Responsibility, because people talk about, you should take responsibility. But yeah, but what is responsibility? Responsibility is made of two words, I guess you could say. Responsibility is respond and ability. So in other words, your ability to respond. Another word we could use, opposite of respond, would be react. Now, what's the difference between react and respond? React means you don't think. You just react unconsciously towards something happening to you. Kind of like how an animal would act towards something without thinking, because it can't be conscious of its actions. It just acts. Respond, on the other hand, takes consciousness, takes thinking. You think, you notice the thought or how things are, and you take appropriate action, conscious action. So, like I said, whatever you see that's happening in your 3D dimension in this world, if you don't like how things are, that's because in the quote-unquote past, there were things that you were thinking of, you told yourself, that took place later on from that moment, which is now, that you told yourself, and over time, this time lag manifested what you see about you now. So if you become conscious that you are creating all of this, every single thing, that means you can change it. That gives you power, because if you created all of this, that means you can change it. You can change. And that's why awakening or being reborn can only happen in the present moment, when it does happen, if it quote unquote happens. So if you ever see something you don't like, that you didn't know that you manifested, if you choose to be different in this very moment and act differently, because you're a new you now, then you are reborn into that new being of what you want to be in that very moment. Because there was never a past, ever. It literally never happened in the absolute sense. It literally never happened. So that story, this thing, this person that maybe you don't like, or this thing, this situation, no matter what it is, your financial situation, that story, it's like, oh no, this thing's happening again. What do you mean happening again? It's happening for the first time right now. And then when you act differently, because you notice, like, oh, I'm creating everything in the present moment at all times. When you realize that and act different than you usually would have, things will stop acting or happening the same way as you always hated. Because this loop of things happening, like you're sick or financial situation or whatever, is the story that you're remembering in the present moment right now, that is creating this situation. Okay, it's like, relatively speaking, there are these things that you remembered in the past, and it's being manifested later on. But there is no past. I'm only talking about the past, relatively speaking, just to get my point across. So in some sense, it can only exist relatively. The past can only exist in a relative sense. But in the absolute sense, I can't even talk about it, because I use the dream example, and that's true. That's literally the case. But at even higher levels of awareness, the difference between dream and then here now, no difference. And that the idea that there's a thing called a difference at all, the word difference, even that being imagined, there's no concept of difference, because there's only one thing here, only one, and you're fragmenting it into these fragments without realizing that you're doing it. So whenever you see something in your 3D dimension, notice that you are creating this right now. And if you are aware of that and choose to be different and take different action, knowing that this is your creation, the things that you don't like about your situation, that is you, literally you. That person that you hate is literally you. Everything you're responding to or reacting to in an unconscious way was you the whole time. And if you know that, you can be nicer towards the situation, be neutral, and say, no, I don't identify with that. This is not the case. And when you do this, you will be reborn in this very moment, literally right now. I hope I made that clear. So I hope that was clear. This is how it works. It's not some technique. In the absolute sense, there was no past. There's only right now. The only reason why you know this is a pen was not because you learned what this was many years ago when you were learning the English language. It's because you are seeing what this is right now. No different than a person or a thing that you learned in a dream. You know, like I could say, I have a best friend named Bobby in my dream. Just download it to my brain, or mind, brain, whatever. And when you wake up, you might think about, who's Bobby? Who was that? In the dream, I somehow just knew. I just knew. There's nothing causing it. So when you're aware of this construct, construct awareness, when you're aware of this, you can choose to act differently, because that's what this all is. It's a giant mind. And that this video, this YouTube video, or wherever you're seeing this right now, is not happening in the past when I recorded it. It's happening right now. You have manifested this video right in front of you right now. And this person, Dennis, have been manifested by you, dreamt up by you in this very moment to tell you this, because you needed something, some human language, some video or something to tell you in some way that you could understand that this is how it's working. That you're manifesting all of this right now. Okay? So I hope this was clear. If you have any questions, feel free to comment in the video, or sorry, in the comments. And please like this video, subscribe, because it really helps me out. Share with a friend, and I'll talk to you next time.